Welcome all you Sheehanites to a very special episode of Sheehan is Dead Comics. Tonight I'll be flying solo. Scott is actually celebrating his anniversary. So happy anniversary, Scotty. And tonight I'll be interviewing Jimmy Palmiotti. He of Harley Quinn fame. He and his wife Amanda Connor wrote, drew, and I think even inked over 100 issues and are basically responsible for the modern take that Harley has nowadays in cartoons and cinema. We'll also be talking about his Guardian Devil, his seminal work with Joe Quesada.
How you doing?
Jimmy P. How
There's
are
my
you?
video. There it is. Okay, I was wondering. I'm like, where's my video? I paid a lot for this camera. How you doing, man?
I'm very well. Let me tell you, it's really nice to meet you, sort of, kind of in person, man. I've been a fan for a while, so.
Oh, pleasure is mine, buddy. I'm glad to be able to do this.
Well, firstly, I wanna let you know I backed your project.
Oh, thank you, man.
Fantastimo, right?
Oh yeah, Fantasy. Yeah, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. We
Yeah.
hit the goal today, and then
Yeah, I saw it.
we
Congratulations.
had a really good day today, which was like unusual. Usually you hit the goal and it kind of quiets down, but it actually picked up today. So I was wondering like what was going on in the universe that people were discovering it today, and I just figured, well, maybe it's just, maybe people got paid today.
Actually, you know what? Yeah, that's true. People got paid. Yeah, maybe I would love to say they knew you were coming on, but I was the only one that knew you were coming on. So
Hey, it's all good. So I'm happy to be here. And where are you from? Where are you
well,
located?
originally I grew up on Long Island, in Patchogue. Have you ever been?
I lived in let's see, I lived in Valley Stream once for a little while. Then I lived in Baldwin, and then I used to rent a house on Fire Island in Kismet for like
Yeah,
13 years. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, dude, we used to go to Fire Island. We'd take the ferry over every summer, me and my friends, and just stay at Davis Park and ride the waves and
Yeah,
have a cheeseburger.
it's a great beach out there, and I love that there was no cars, right? So
Yeah,
you can go out. We would go out drinking, and there was no drinking and driving. You just drank and then fell asleep on the beach if you wanted
yeah,
to.
yeah.
It was definitely a different world, and then as I got a little older, it started to get bought up by rich people, and
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it became a different place, over the years.
Yeah, I haven't been there in I haven't been there probably in like I'd say like 13 years. I haven't been there. So
Yeah, the same here. I mean, I know a row of houses already went out to the ocean.
yeah.
The row that was used to be by the beach, and I was at Kismet, so I was all the way at the first island. They called it the first stop, all the way towards Jones Beach,
Yeah.
and then uh, my area was all firemen and cops, and the house I rented was from a fireman that actually the same guy we based Ash on when I did it years ago.
Okay,
That
cool.
fireman. So
Cool.
yeah.
Well, right now I'm in Guilderland, New York, which is like right next door to Albany.
Oh, you're all the way north. Yeah, man. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Are
No,
you?
north and west,
Yeah,
right?
north and
North
west.
and
You got
west.
it. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. That's it. Didn't they used to have the state fair not too far from there?
Yeah, they do actually. You're right. They have it in a place called, I think the last time I saw it, it was in Altamont.
Yeah, Altamont. Yeah.
Altamont.
I
Yeah.
I saw the stray cats there years ago at one of the New York State Fair. We took the drive all the way up there to see them, and it's quite a trip. I mean, it's from Brooklyn. It's a bit of a ride.
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely. Did you take the Taconic up or the
Yeah,
through?
because you take the Palisades up to the Taconic and then straight up, and I don't think there's another way unless you like to kind of go around mountains and stuff. But
Yeah.
I think that was the most direct way to get up there.
Yes, yes. That's how my parents used to go. We moved up here about actually in November of 2000 after I
Oh, okay.
graduated high school. And my dad had retired from the Long Island Railroad, so we moved up here. And then, we always took so many trips on the Taconic, and then, watch out for all the troopers that are hiding in the
Yeah,
bushes.
they do that, and I used to teach camp up in not far up, and only in Rockland County, but it's
Yeah.
still, again, it was a good hour or two from Brooklyn, but I love it. It's beautiful up there. I mean, when I was a kid, it was so not built up. It was so like we would go and there would be woods for miles and miles and miles. And I'm guessing it's in spots it's still that, but I'm guessing there's a lot more people up there than used to be.
Yeah. Have you heard of Hudson, New York? Does that ring a
Yeah,
bell?
sure, sure.
Okay. So when my folks moved up here, we lived in Hudson. Now, my sister and I had not been up here, but my parents had visited my mom's brother, my uncle. And so it was like, oh, it's so much cheaper up there. You're gonna like it, this and that. We get up
Right.
here, and my sister and I are like, where have you taken us? Because there was like almost nothing. Whereas now in Hudson, like a lot of city folks on the weekends, they built up downtown. But
Yeah,
there was
sure.
like there were no restaurants downtown other than like a cheesy pizza place and a Chinese joint. And then even going up Route 9 toward Albany, there were no stores. Now there's like Walmart complex and all these different things. So
Yeah, I mean that's how it happens. I mean, in our lifetime, we're gonna see places that, especially mine, because I'm older than you. We used to drive up there, and you would go for a half hour, you wouldn't see any turnoff, nothing. It was just, and I remember even as kids in Rockland County, which is kind of weird to think about. We used to go into the woods for hours, just deep dive in. There was nothing on the other side. Now it's built up, and I think I have an opinion about that because I think there's too many people anyway. But I think that they're all chasing nature out of their lives, and I think we need that green to kind of keep us um, in a good place. But
I agree with you.
that's sort of what the Fantasima book is about on another level too. It's about the idea that we're losing space. It's like I said, it's a Jungle Girl type tale of a brother and a sister separated, but also there's a little preachiness in there. Can't resist it.
Well, I'll tell you, the first thing that got my attention about that was the beautiful art from Mr. Linsner, it is.
Yeah, Joe Linsner's he's a guy I use on every campaign. He's a friend of mine, one of the best painters I know. Just the stuff is just beautiful. I mean, you want to hang it on the wall, and actually I do. Um, and he's just amazing. I got him to do the three covers because the Kickstarter has the three books. You get three books, and it's the whole
Right.
story. So it's around 90 pages total, and Joe just captured the feel, and Joe makes it sexier than it is. He kind of Joe Linsner's it up a bit. But they're beautiful covers. I mean, I figured, hey, I can't lose even if you just get those three covers, you're going to be like, well, that's beautiful, and then we do on the Kickstarters we do some fancy printing on it. So when you get it, you'll see it's like this spot varnish and there's like a matte, a satin matte background, and we amplify the art on the Kickstarter. So it's one of the stretch goals, but we always kind of I make those stretch goals low because I really want to go that far with the printing. I want to take it a step further than a regular comic because I feel the regular comics these days feel cheap and disposable. And that's the last two words I want to hear about anything I'm doing is that it's cheap and or disposable.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Just take my Kickstarter when you get it, just roll it up, put it in your back pocket, walk around with it.
Well, I like everybody treats their comics differently,
Sure.
So I'm a collector as well as a buyer, and I like old comics, new comics. I try everything, so I'm very picky about the production of a book.
Well, I think that's awesome that you're that far, you have that much experience. I had read a few days ago, I read your wiki page, and it's like you've had so many productions and you've got so many pans and in the fryer, in the oven, as it were. And I was like, wow, because I only know I know you have written and drawn other things, but my brain always goes to you inking, especially this bad
Yeah, I mean
boy.
it's when you discovered, sure, Marvel Knights, and yeah.
Yeah.
I inked a lot of books in the 90s and the 2000s. I inked a lot.
Right. Can you just be talk to me like I'm 10 years old, because when
Okay.
it comes to inking, I
Yeah.
listen to like Rob Liefeld has his Observations podcast, which I highly recommend if you haven't listened yet.
Okay.
And he talks about like how certain inkers like Terry Austin had the best line over like John Byrne, but when someone else did it, this and that. To me, inking just looks like inking. Like what what I don't
So it's like
understand.
it's sort of like having a good band behind you as a lead singer and having a terrible band behind you as a lead singer. Inking and coloring is very important in production. So a lot of times a penciler will not ink their own work because basically they do it because there's time constraints on getting a comic done. To do it all in pencil and do it all in ink, it's an extra 10 days or 20 days. So it's two different jobs, penciler and inker. Now, some people just ink their own work. We know those guys, they're great, but most of the guys doing monthly books need an inker, like the John Romita Juniors or the Mark Bagleys or those kind of guys, right? And and Joe Quesada, so for instance. And so a lot of these, so what happens with inkers are that the inkers have their own set of skills. So they're each, it's sort of like we have 10 different guys playing piano, and they each have kind of their own jam, and they bring something to each performance or they don't. Sometimes they're really good, sometimes they're not. For me, the best guys are always the guys that know how to draw, because it's people say, well, you're just tracing what's in ink, but the reality of it is the ink is looking at it as a form and is looking at it to separate it from the foreground and background. So there's a lot of thought that goes into it, because when a penciler does it, a lot of times it just looks like the same line. And the inker's job is to make it look like this hand's coming at you, and to push things back, pull back. Sometimes you use brushes and pens. Sometimes it's over rendered and, there's so much detail and shading. And then we look at guys like Klaus Janson, who looks at the pencil art and then does something different with it. Like there's no better inker on Frank Miller than Klaus. And there was no better inker on John Romita Jr. than Al Williamson.
Mhm.
And there was no better inker on Jack Kirby than Joe Sinnott. When Kirby and Sinnott did a page, it it was like magic. And then when somebody else said Kirby, it looked okay. Mike Royer. Some people like Mike Royer's. Vince Coletta would do stuff I didn't like too much over Kirby. But Joe Sinnott took the work and made it sing, made the stuff look different. And what they do, the inkers do, is they add a little bit of their own artwork into it. They make things thick and thin. They have beautiful brush lines. Some have really solid pens. Terry Austin used mechanical pens, so it had a very kind of mechanical look to it that people loved over John Byrne. And then when you saw John Byrne ink himself, he inked himself different. It didn't look like when Terry did it. And it was a different style because it was more organic. He would use a brush or a pen, where Terry would sit there and mechanically do every little thing. So it gave the artwork a different look, and the inkers bring something to the table when they do this. So a good inker makes the stuff look better or makes it look different. A bad inker makes it look worse. Some of the guys, they kind of destroy the artwork because then all they're doing is looking at the line and they're not looking at what the figure is doing and the space it's in. Because when we work on a panel, it's a lot of times it's just people talking,
Mhm.
and the way hair is rendered is the line itself is pleasing to the eye, but the untrained eye, like music, enjoys the sound, enjoys the overall look. But when you listen to a song you love, you're not sitting there going, "Oh wow, look, that trumpet came in there and caused that to do that." You're not dissecting it, and you just know that I love this sound. I love a John Barry soundtrack because it brings something to James Bond movies that I can't explain. Well, if you want to break it down to science, and you go, okay, well, it's because he uses horn sections, because there's like a string section in there that's beautiful. But again, to appreciate music, you don't even need to do that. All you need to do is turn it on, listen to it, and go, "Oh yeah, I like that." And the same thing with comic art and inkers is like, "Oh, that guy's good over him," or "I don't like that guy over him." And how we look at it when we were younger was like, "Oh, what happened to this guy this month? I don't like how this looks." And then you realize that it's because he has a different inker on it. It's a different style. So I hope that helps a little bit because again, part of my job as an inker was not to be noticed. My job was to make the artwork look great and it was not about me getting attention. And for me, when I got artwork, my job was to make the artist happy, the penciler happy. So he would ask for me again, and I'd get more work. So I would try to do the best job I could when I was inking the person. So they would call me up and or tell the editor, "Hey, can you get Jimmy as the regular inker on this book?" And then I'd have regular work for the year, you know? So my job is to make it look better. Not all of them are great, but we do have some greats in the industry that I love. When Fazetta inked somebody, it looked like another world. It looked beautiful, you know, and he would ink people once in a while. So it comes down to that. So it's like music, it's like art and like color. Like everybody sees things a little differently. But you just said you like Claremont with you like John Byrne with Terry Austin, and then you look at John Byrne when he draws his own books. You might not like it as much as that, and realistically, that's because the inker did a different job. You know, there's a different look on it, and you happen to like the combination of those two guys. Like Hall and Oates, everything they're doing was great. You know.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Thank you for such a thorough explanation. I definitely can I can definitely relate to the music part. You know, you
Yeah.
don't hear it's like, hey, I love that trumpet, but there's just
Right.
something about the sound, it blends together, and it's like I really like that.
Yeah. Do you ever listen to music and it's it has a certain melancholy to it, and when you
Sure.
listen to it, you like it hits you, you know, like you listen to some certain tune or some piece of classical music, and it's like it's almost like tearing your gut apart. It's so melancholy, and so you know, and that is how you the love of music, right? It's like that somebody created that from nothing, and it's hitting you is just such a spectacular thing to appreciate. I don't know how they do it, but I know when I listen to it, it hits me raw, like emotionally raw, and and it's amazing to me how somebody can do that with 35 instruments or an orchestra, or maybe one guy with a guitar just singing slowly. But it's the power of music, and that's the way art kind of works in the same on the same level, you know.
That's awesome, man. Thank you. Thank you. The
Yeah,
first song that came to my mind when you mentioned that, I was thinking of Fields of Gold with Sting. That
yeah.
song always gets me, man.
Right, right. And there's something to it. You know, it's an individual thing, right? When you hear that, it makes you think of something or puts you somewhere. I know I had songs like the first kiss I had, the first girl I was with, and there was some music that I remember from that. So when I hear the song, it puts me right back to that place. And it's same thing with comics because when we grow up, we're kids, we have these comics we love, and we never get sick of looking at them. Like we'll go back and oh, I love that issue. That was, and you realize it's like a trigger for you. It's like like you look at it and you remember when you were a kid loving it so much. And as you get older, your brain changes a little bit, but it still appreciates that on a different level,
Certainly.
you know?
Certainly. I would think yeah, it appreciates it on an even deeper level.
Right.
Like
Yeah, you hope so.
yeah, on that note, I've started reading Nightfall, the omnibuses. So
Yeah,
when I was a kid, I remember like hunting each issue and trying, in the back bins and like paying like $6, $7 for a certain one or this or that. Whereas now it's all in the volume one. I read it, and now I'm in the volume two, which is Knight's Quest. And
right,
I go through. I didn't have every issue of that run, but I see some of the covers, and I'm like, oh man, I remember I had this. My mom will
right,
say like, what? And I'm like, oh, this one. I remember buying this at the comic shop, and I had this comic.
right.
It's just it really does take me back. Many books do that for me. So yeah,
Yeah, me
yeah,
too. Me,
yeah,
I,
yeah.
you know, I have, I collect some older comics and I buy them because I hate that I have to pay 85 times what I paid for them when I was a kid,
Sure, sure.
but I love having them. And I think that's part of our wonderful disease of loving comics is we're collectors, we want to complete, stories and we want to complete things. But my thing is, it's so healthy to have a hobby. It's such a
Yes,
healthy thing.
yes,
And, whether other people understand it or not, it doesn't matter. It's an actual healthy thing, I think, to have a hobby and to have something that you enjoy alone, like it's just yours to enjoy. And it's nice to go to cons when we see other people like have the same thing. It's like kind of fun to do. So it's for me, it's the fun part of conventions is people coming and talking about stuff they grew up with and stuff that matters to them because it's different with every person. Although, although we do all have these sentences like, well, nothing looks as cool as Bernie Wrightson, or we have those sentences, but everybody likes something different, and that's the beauty of comic art. There's something for everybody.
There is, and stories, and I I'll tell my co-pilot Scott, I'll say if I start frothing from the mouth, like when we interview someone, like text me to like cut it out, because I'll go off and I'll be like, oh my God, I love this issue, or I love this picture, or I love this story. Where did you come up with it? How did you do it?
Right.
And it really touches. There's something secret deep down inside that just touches, because it's like comics
Yeah.
are my jam.
Well, and and when you read them, it's you and the comic, right? You're not reading it with a group. It's not in a theater. It's not on TV. It's you. That is a giant jug of whatever that is. But anyway,
Bourbon. No, it's iced tea.
there
So
you go. But so you enjoy it at your own speed and your own time, for me, I found like when Amanda and I were doing Harley Quinn, and we would have these like young teenage girls would say, this is like this book means everything to me. I love it. Like all of a sudden we were hitting another audience that I'm not used to hitting, and I realized the power of the books too, because people relate to the characters, and with Harley Quinn, it was a lot of girls in their 20s and 30s, women, but girls, saying, this really meant something to me because I was in an abusive relationship and I got out of it. And you don't even realize it, that that it means so much to people. And it's such a nice thing to hear back from people. So there's just so much to this industry that I love. That's what I'm saying.
sure, sure. Back, I remember back in 2016 at New York Comic Con, after the Suicide Squad movie came out, like I saw so many women dressed as Harley Quinn, and I was like,
Yeah,
wow, this
yeah.
thing really took off. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, we were Amanda and I never dreamed that working on a comic like that would like change so much stuff in our lives. And I mean, we got to meet Margot Robbie a couple of times, and we got there was so many fun things that came out of it. And it also showed a lot of people, the right people on the right character make a big difference. And
yeah,
I feel it's hard right now because I feel like most of the comics I read now, the teams keep changing so much that we
yes,
really don't get a sense of who the writer is and who the artists are. And I like to remind people that we did over 120 issues of Harley in a row. So we definitely said, well, this is what we're going to do for the next 5 years, and we did it. And it does make a difference because forever I'm gonna be known as as one of the guys that worked on Harley. But that kind of stability is something that we lost in the last 10 years in comics, that the stability of having a team stay on a book for a while. And I think comics suffers because of that.
that was one of the questions I was going to ask you. The state of comics. We had Dan DiDio on a few months ago, and what a
Yeah,
delight he was. And Dan, we jammed about story and how he didn't just want something written and then thrown away. It was something that built a bridge to something else, playing the long game.
sure.
And to your point, I feel like, especially since the merger, as when it went to AT&T and now Discovery,
Yeah.
and they let so many good people go, that there's not enough oversight in things, and it's just kind of like, let's see what sticks to the wall, what doesn't, and let's start all over, 1, 2, 3. So
Yeah. Also, you're gonna see them just rehash old things. They're gonna bring back Elseworlds. They're gonna bring back this team. They're gonna keep going back to the things that sold in the past and try to do it. And you lost the people like Mark Chiarello, or the guys that tried something new like Wednesday Comics, or even Dan, who said, let's bring the Looney Tunes characters into the books. And Dan was trying stuff all the time. But you feel the companies, they both Marvel, DC, all they do is rehash. Let's bring back the Ultimates. Let's bring back. It's going to keep going in that loop over and over until you have people wanting to do original stuff and bring in original stuff and shake the boat a little bit. And I'm not talking about the character's sexuality. I'm talking about actually framing the characters in a way that's steady and so people can jump on the books and read them and have a sense of a world worked out.
Yes.
Dan was very good at that. You know, you can
Awesome.
pick on New 52 all you want, but it was
I
a
loved
plan.
it.
Yeah, it was a plan. And even Rebirth was a plan,
Love that too.
you know? So, you know, he definitely was, it was a big loss losing him at DC, I think, because he not only had a plan, but he also loved those characters. And I just think, like, I think since then, it's kind of the company's kind of wandering around looking for the next big thing all the time. And you know, I love those characters. So I want good things for them, but I feel like they got to put their trust in some creators for a bit and let them do their thing. Because when you have a creator happy, that's when you get the best work.
Most certainly, I agree with that. I wish that I don't know if it'll ever come back to where there will be a renaissance to where comics will be, especially DC, because I've been a DC fanboy my whole life.
Yeah.
Only dabbled a little bit in Marvel, but with DC, it's like I wonder if there'll ever be a time where maybe the comics have such a boon that they bring back, you know, someone like Mark Chiarello, a Dan DiDio, you
Yeah,
know, and
I think that, you know, it's always the next guy thinks they're gonna do things better, and there's a lot of next person. Let's try this person. But you know, guys like Dan and Paul Levitz, they're unique in their energy level and their vision. You can bring in people that like comics, but you have to bring in somebody that reads all the comics. You need to, you know, we don't get a sense. I don't get a sense that everybody working in comics reads other people's comics, and that's a bad thing. You know, that when Joe and I were working in Marvel Nights, we're doing Marvel Nights. We would go every Wednesday to the comic shop and buy a boatload of comics and read through them, you know, and see what everybody else is doing. And I don't know if that happens anymore. I get the sense of everybody's in their little pocket universe, putting out what they want, or at least putting out what their bosses want. And they're worrying about sales and multiple covers and all that kind of stuff. And it's one of the reasons why I started doing Kickstarters, because I'm like, I need to control my own books. I need to do my own vision. I don't want to work for editorial where they tell me to change things or do something. I don't mind working for other people. I got a book I'm doing with Todd McFarlane that's a Gunslinger coming in the fall. You know, I like working with other people, even DC and Marvel. I love working with those guys. But I have the sense of, like, on some level, they're like, you know, new is better and new is better and new is better, you know. But and then again they jump backwards and they start rehashing things again. We'll start seeing a lot of the same stuff we see. They can't help it. They can't help go back and do things like it was done before, because it made money before. And then we have to understand also, these companies are all about making money.
right.
And what happens with that is that they don't want to pay the same money that, you know, established creators get. So they bring in new talent, but the new talent has to be broken in. And unless you have a great editor or an editor-in-chief, they just kind of throw everything against the wall, and the continuity gets lost. And you know as well as I do, when you lose the continuity, you lose the fans. You lose the diehard fans.
Amen.
They feel like, why should I buy this book? It doesn't matter what happens in it.
Amen.
It's just gonna be rebooted in a year anyway. So why should I bother? I'll wait till there's a trade, and then I'll decide if I want it or not. You know, and that's how you lose the weekly readers. You know, or they put 30 covers on it, and you realize, well, I just want one.
That drives me insane.
Cover. Yeah, well, it's a different kind of collector, right? So
yeah.
You know, it's okay to have both, but I think I think when they started putting 5 covers on every comic, that's when I was like, wait a minute. It used to be just a special one issue, #1 or something, but they started putting 5 covers on every issue, and they had nothing to do with the inside of the book. Like, there's no cover where you sit there and go, oh, that's what's inside the book. Remember when we grew up, the covers were exactly a scene from the book, and we'd open up the book and read about it. Like, how did they get there?
Yes.
And
yes.
I know I sound like an old man complaining, but there are traditional story, American comic story traditions that I think need to be brought back a little bit. You know,
I appreciate everything you just said, because you articulated everything I felt, and I've tried to not sound like an old man. You know, like,
oh, I'm a young old man. Meaning I'm older, but I'm young at heart. I mean, I got my hands on everything. I'm trying to do a little bit of everything, and, you know, create my own world with the Kickstarters and stuff. but I'm an old man because I look at this stuff and it's hard to care. It's hard. And it's weird because I see people, they write comics and they write like, well, I went to a great bar mitzvah. Why can't this character go to a bar mitzvah? You know, and it's like, no, that's no. If you're gonna write Batman, write it about Bruce Wayne and Batman. You
Right.
know,
Thank you.
um,
Jimmy, thank you.
you know, and it sounds like an old man thing. And
No,
look,
no, no.
I think
I'm
there's
there too.
room. I
Yeah.
think there's room for that kind of stuff in between the superhero moments. I think there's nothing wrong. In Harley Quinn, it was ridiculous, the book we wrote, but there was story there. But we went all over the place. I just think there's a balance that kind of got off because I think the editors are overworked, overpressured, or their priorities are about keeping their job on some level. And you know, I feel for them because we have some great editors in the business, still working in the business, but you know, they're you could tell they have so much work in front of them. You know, and it's hard when you're overworked. It's hard to do any job. Let's be honest. You know.
Yeah, I know what that feels like. Yeah. Everything you said, man, I agree with you 100%. I feel like you articulated what I have a hard time actually articulating because I feel the same exact way about comics. I feel like the continuity, there is no continuity. Now it's just kind of like, what's your head continuity, you know? And it's hard for me to care other than like, I might wait for a trade because I've been a trade waiter for years. However, Rebirth actually got me to the comic store and I actually started buying comics individually again. I was so
Yeah.
excited for that period. And then when Doomsday Clock came out that Jeff and Gary Frank did, that was another one that got me to the comic store. And I actually bought like 4 covers on that one. So
there you go.
But other than that, I've just done some trade waiting. I'm a huge Batman fan and I would buy Batman just out of habit. Whereas now, even some of the stories going on, I'm like, I don't like that. So I've skipped volumes.
Well, you know, so a lot of the buying, there's 2 kinds of comic fan that buy things out of habit. They're X-Men fan or a Batman fan. And they buy every issue of everything that comes out. And I always ask them, do you read them all? And they always look at me and go, well, I'm trying to catch up, you know? And I always laugh. I'm like going, you know, you know, try to read it because, you know, you might want to read the comic. It's sort of like, I'm going to buy a sandwich and not eat it, you know?
Yeah.
Or I'm going to eat it later. Yeah. But, you know, we lose those guys every time we start a new number one. We lose them. And we lose a certain amount of people. They're in a certain amount of place where they're like, I can only spend so much. And then they go, you know what? I'm not going to buy that new X-Men series or a new Batman. I'll wait to see if there's something steady. You know, I'll wait. And what happens, I'll wait, the other words for I'll wait is I am not going to spend my money on it. And so you have to be careful about rebooting everything all the time. What I thought Dan DiDio did pretty well and at DC was he made it an event when things got rebooted. It wasn't in a year. It wasn't in 2 years. It was a bunch of years. He made it an event. So you felt like everybody, I mean, let's be honest, Rebirth and New 52, the stores were never busier. Those things sold record numbers. And, you know, that was a group effort of people trying to do the best work they could. Whether you liked it or not was a whole separate conversation, right? But it introduced a bunch of new stuff and it tried stuff and it kept the continuity. The continuity in the character was established from that number one. People didn't feel like it was just being rebooted for the hell of it. It felt like there was a purpose to the reboot. So a lot of it comes down to presentation and the nuances of the launch. And Dan and the crew were great at doing that. We you know, we did. Amanda and I did very well. I mean, I had Jonah Hex at that time, and I had and we had Harley, and we did very well with both books for a while, you know. So, but again, things change, and the world changes on a daily basis. You know, you can either fight it or you can do what I do. I observe, and then I pick up what I want to buy. I'm very picky these days.
Me too. Yeah, me too. I'm the same exact way.
I actually follow creators more than I do characters.
Yes.
Like there's certain artists I'll buy anything they do, and there's certain writers I'll pick up their stuff. And I find myself trying whatever they do. Garth Ennis, I always pick up whatever Garth's doing because I like his stuff. And you know, there's certain artists I like, and I my company loyalty has gone a little away. and I'm more of a loyal to my creators. Um, it's sort of like saying I'm a big AM Records fan instead of saying I'm a Beatles fan or an Apple fan.
Yeah.
I follow the talent more these days, and maybe because I'm older, maybe because I've been around longer. It's for me, it's like there's certain artists that no matter what they do, it's great looking. So I always buy it, you
Yes.
know. And
Yes.
or some you have that, I'm sure, with writers. If a writer's doing it, I'm going to buy it. Um, I think that's what a lot what comic how comics is changing, and the big two are dependent on you buying characters, not creators. They want you to buy the characters because
Amen.
Walt Disney, name the last Walt Disney writer that that wrote the last five Disney movies. You don't know, but you know the characters,
Mhm.
right? And that's what they sell. So things are sold differently. I get it. Corporations need to make money. I get it.
Well, it was certainly palpable, the energy for Rebirth. Like there was energy for New 52 and kind of like, oh, what is this? Let me check it out. Whereas Rebirth there was like a hype and an energy and a push with it. Even
Right,
like I said, going back to the comic shop for the first time in years and buying individual issues, like there was just an energy in the shop, it was just like,
yes,
wow, look at the Rebirth and the dress presentation and like this is
right,
back to basics, and it was wonderful, wonderful.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean the energy is a key word, isn't it? Because it's like because a lot of times you go in and you're like, yeah, there's nothing that's jumping at me,
And
and
I want
you,
it to grab my soul and just grab me and make me like, wow,
right, right,
yeah, but it
yeah.
doesn't.
Well, hopefully things do again. Who knows?
Yeah, let's not hold our breath though.
No,
but
no.
but your book Fantasima, that really does look good. And
Yeah, it's a three issue. It's well, the Kickstarter you get all three issues.
yeah.
And it's basically the basic story is about a brother and sister that get separated at a very young age, and because of a lot of events in the book, the brother thinks the sister is dead and gone, and we catch up to the brother 20 years later, and he sees some photos in an art gallery of a photographer that takes pictures of these tribes in South America, and he sees a young woman in the photo, and he swears it looks like his sister, and he thinks she's dead, like there was a tragedy and everything. And it's about his. He goes back to South America. He goes through the rainforest in Chile, and he's trying to track down this tribe to see if this girl is really his sister. And then meanwhile, the separate story that's going on at the same time is, of course, what happened to the sister when because the parents hit. There's some tragedy that happened. I don't want to ruin everything for you,
Sure.
um, but it winds up we follow the sisters. The sister grew up with this tribe, but this tribe has a sort of mystic background to it. They're sort of in touch with the rainforest, and then it's how the brother and sister meet again, and they both thought each other were gone, and what happens when they meet up, and it's an emotional story. It's a little sexy. It's violent. It's got a lot of. You're not going to read it in 10 minutes. The three books are going to take you a good hour to read, and at least an hour, because I like to read when I read comics. I like to have a
I
big
like to
full
take my
adventure.
time. Take my
Yeah,
time.
yeah. I don't want to read them quick. I feel like
Yeah.
I feel like I invested, but it's I've been working on this with Pierre Brito, who's the artist, for over 2.5 years. I wrote it with a buddy of mine, Craig Whedon, and we wrote it together, and then we gave it to Pierre. And again, 2.5 years we worked on this, and just until last month we added more pages because we both felt like I need a little more closure here, or I need a little more scene here. And that's the beauty of working on something where nobody's telling you what to do is you can kind of read it, get some feedback, and then add another page, or the ending's too quick. Let's blow it up a little bit, and or I have actually added stuff in the beginning that I didn't think of until a month ago, and I was like, wouldn't it be cool if the book opened this way? And then Pierre's like, I can do pages. I'm like, all right, it's costing me a fortune, but what the hell? I
Yeah.
need four more new pages.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we've been working on it a long time, and then I got beautiful covers from from Joe Linsner on it. And then we did some chase covers if people want them. We have Dave Johnson and Dan Panosian, and Pierre did a cover. And then there's even a level of Amanda's covers. We always do that with each Kickstarter. We do like this. You don't know what you're gonna get till you get it covers with Amanda, but they're always beautiful. And we don't print a lot, so some of those we only print like 200 books, so some of them are very, very, very limited. But the cool thing with the Kickstarter is we also have a digital level, so you actually get, for $15 you get 3 PDFs that you own, so you can read them anywhere. It's not like you buy your online PDF, your online comics, and then 3 years later they tell you don't own them anymore. This is like a PDF you can read everywhere, and that's only $15. And the good news is we hit the goal on it already today, so we have stretch goals coming. So everybody that backs the campaign gets something from the stretch goals, and we have some more digital books. Eventually, we're doing some printing stuff on it. Eventually, there'll be some other things, sticker sheets involved, and so when people get their packages, it's not just the comics. There's a lot of stuff in them, and I'm a guy who likes to open packages with stuff in them. So
yeah, me too.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about this one because, like I said, it's such a beautiful book, and Pierre Brito did such an amazing job. He was an artist. I actually worked on a book I did called The Flintstones for DC. There was a very futuristic take of the Flintstones. I'm sorry, not the Flintstones, the Jetsons. I did the Jetsons. My brain is in that cartoon land. I did the Jetsons book, and it was like Elroy and the sister a little grown up more and stuff. And Pierre drew that, and he also drew the Harley Quinn Gossamer book we did for DC Comics for I think it was Rebirth, one of the Rebirth issues we did with Gossamer, and he drew that. The guy's an amazing artist, and like I said, if you take a look at the Kickstarter, if people go to that, you can scroll down, you can see pages from the inside of the book that are just stunning. I mean, the whole book looks beautiful.
I can attest, they're absolutely beautiful. They really are. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Where do you come up with an idea like that, or your ideas? Are you on vacation, staring out the window, or?
No, Amanda and I travel a lot. My wife and I, we do travel a lot. And the one thing we always are interested in when we get to a new city, we kind of look up the history of the city, and we try to go to museums. Or we just did a trip. We did a 42-day trip. And we went to, we landed in Germany, made our way down to France, Italy, Austria, and then to the Netherlands. And we backpacked it, and we had the Euro pass, and we literally got on a train, and we get off when we saw a town that looked cool, and we go and investigate, and then we'd stay there for a couple of days, and we go into a castle, and we would go into a basement of we would do like any crazy thing and explore. And when you travel a lot, we meet a lot of people, we're very friendly, we meet people, we have drinks with people, we sit, we make sure we're in that place. We're very present when we're traveling. And you hear stories, and people tell you stories, and then you learn bits of history, and you become fascinated with them. And so a lot of the things I write are inspired by history and by traveling and by meeting people. When I was younger, my father would take me and my brothers every Sunday after church ended, and before my mom had dinner on Sunday ready, my dad would take us to the bowling alley. And my dad would see his 4 brothers at the bowling alley, and we'd sit there and listen to the 4 or 5 of them tell stories about, because they all served in World War II, right? So they would tell stories about stuff, or they remember with this guy, that guy, oh, he got chased by that guy, and that guy wanted to kill him. And as a kid, I kind of like always listened to their stories and loved it. And then as I got older, I would go to these old man bars, I call them old man bars, and have a drink or two and talk to the people there. And you realize that, it's part of it's like handed down, like the idea of storytelling. Being able to sit here and talk to you, Brian, and tell you some stuff, how to explain things and everything. It's being able to articulate how you feel is very important for a writer. And for a storyteller to really listen is one of the keys to storytelling. It's not, I tell people all the time, like, let other people speak.
Mm.
Let them tell you something. Their stories are going to tell you everything you need to know about them. And the stories they retain them for a reason because there's a lesson or there's something that inspired them in it. So listen closely because you'll get to know people very well from the stories they tell. And so for me, I grew up in a family that loved to tell stories, sit around and my dad, they would smoke cigars and tell stories. You know, I couldn't stand the smoke from the cigars, but I like the story part. Um, and then when you get older, you and I'm sure you do this, Brian. You watch a movie and you go, I wish that went this way instead of that way. It would have been a better movie. Okay, so that's the storyteller in you is like reimagining how you would like to do it, right?
Yeah.
And when I was working, I first started in comics. I was an inker, so I would read the comics, I'd read the scripts to understand what I was doing, and then I'd be like, that could be better. That's not done well. And then when I was an editor for Marvel Knights, I was an editor. I would get scripts and say, okay, this why don't you try this instead? Nobody will see that coming, and the writer will go, oh, that's a great idea. And we talk out stuff. And eventually I felt like, okay, I'm brave enough now. I'm going to try to do some of my own. And my first stuff I wrote, besides Ash and Painkiller Jane, which is our own stuff, was I took on Deadpool for Marvel. I did a bunch of Deadpools, and one of the editors gave me a chance, and that's how I went from inking to writing, and then I started getting more writing work, and some of the stuff got recognized, and I worked with my buddy Justin Gray, who used to be our assistant at Marvel Knights, and Justin and I wanted to do Jonah Hex together, and our run on Jonah Hex was over 100 and something issues. So eventually you just keep doing it, and the joke is when your brain is wired for that, right? When you get to the point where you start listening better and you start being present. So when you travel, it's not about where you're going next. Be present where you are. Notice everything around you, the smells, the tastes, everything, the wonderfulness of other older people telling you things and listening to them talk about how they make food. And when you're very present like that, your brain is very open to new ideas and trying things. And it's almost like an epiphany where you sit there and go, oh, okay, this is, I never even realized that. And we all have that in life. Like we say, this is how I feel. And then you see the reaction of somebody and you go, oh, I didn't know that upset you so much. I never realized that. Well, because our brain is constantly has to look beyond what we are comfortable with.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
why I'm not a big fan of politics, because politics now are polarizing, when honestly it should be us versus them. It should be the people telling the government what to do, not the people being split and taking teams and doing sides. That's their way of controlling us, is by keeping us separate and making them fight against each other so we don't focus on what they're doing. And that's a great distraction, but it also weakens our government. Our government's strongest when the people have something to say about what should be done in the world, not people representing us who are corrupt or they have different agendas. And again, we're all being played by politics because all they want us to do is pick teams and then argue with each other. Because let me tell you, when you're playing football and you're fighting on a football field, you don't see the guy robbing the car in the parking lot. And that's basically what they want us to do, is just fight with each other and everything while they rob the car in the parking lot. I made it sound really simple, but if you think long and hard about it, there's a lot of truth in that. And,
Sure.
and they want us to judge people by their politics or their opinions. And I'm like, I have too many good friends that have opposing views to me that I'm not going to let go of my friends because they don't think the same things I do. Because I know they're decent, good human beings. I just will tell, if they ask me, I will give them my opinion. But my opinion should not be a threat. My opinion should be a conversation point. And,
Right.
I try to handle my social media like that sometimes. Like if somebody really has a contrary opinion, I'll try to talk it out. But the minute they start calling me a name or they start saying, well, you idiot, or something, that's when I mute them. Because I tell them, we could argue all day long, we could discuss things all day long, but the minute you have to, be a little bit of an ass, you're gone, because I don't have patience for it. But anyway, back to storytelling. So being present, opening your brain to new experiences, new things, making friends with people you never thought in a million years you'd make friends with. Instead of choosing on a Friday night, instead of staying in, to go out socially somewhere, have dinner or sit at a bar and talk to people you would never talk to, you would be shocked how open people are to talking about things. And look, we're lucky. We have conventions. We can meet with other people and we can talk about things. But it's also good to talk to people that we have nothing in common with, because it's really interesting. Other people's lives are what we're reading in comics is other people's lives. Let's be honest. We're not reading our life. We're reading other people's lives with some imagination and color thrown onto it. But at the end of the day, there's still stories about characters. So there's that.
Well, I really appreciate that. You remind me of my dad. My dad used to like go to the local pub, and next thing you know, I'd be sitting there with him as like a kid or even a teenager, and being like, "What is he doing?" But then next thing you know, he knows their name and where they're from and this and that. And so I've inherited that, kind of from my old man.
It's a great trait, because you go back to that bar. It's like, hey,
Yeah,
how you doing? There's nothing nicer than going somewhere where the people know you. Hey, how you do? Because they do take extra care of you.
certainly.
You make a connection with people. People do treat you differently.
100%. Me and my barber, I've gone to the same guy for like 3 years. And
Right.
and he'll like, oh, anything for you, Brian. He'll buzz me here, a little 5 o'clock shadow, not charge me more. But it's even pleasant just to be in his company. How's your family? How's your baby? How's your mom?
Right.
How's your wife?
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. He'll tell you some stories about being a barber or whatever that you never
Yeah.
knew about. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, but you have to be open to that. And if a writer isn't social, I don't think they're a great writer. I think it's important to be social. You need to hear other voices.
Do you keep a
You
pad
can't.
with you, Jim?
What's
Like
that?
I've talked to other writers and they've been like, oh, I usually keep a pad with me in case a thought comes or an
Garth
inspiration.
Ennis does that. If it's something that really stands out to me, I'll write a note and I'll email it to myself.
Okay.
Yeah, I do that. But I pretty much can remember, the night that I'm out where if some people say something sometimes and I write them down. They'll say something so ridiculous that I'm laughing. I'm like, oh, I'm going to use that. I remember when Garth Ennis used to first come into New York. We used to go out to a bar and we drink, we'd eat dinner, we'd drink. I would tell him stories, and then we'd see like stuff we talked about. I'd see it in Preacher.
Mhm.
And he used to give me credit. At the end of the book, he would say, "Hey, in his little editorial, he'd say, thanks for this one, Jimmy, because he would use something I said in the story. And that's what writers do, right? They kind of just siphon everything. They just take from everywhere. And then you hope that they're clever and you hope that they're interesting. And, sometimes you see the story coming a mile away, but it's how it's delivered that makes it unique. Look, at times when we watch a show, we want it to go where we expect it to go. We want it to. We just want the delivery to be colorful and interesting and creative. How many times you watch a show and at the end, maybe the end of this episode, the guy kicks down the door and you're like, next episode, and you're watching it, and all of a sudden it's a car on a highway and it's 5 years before. And you're like, wait, what happened? And then you realize they're leading into it. That's creative storytelling, right?
Mhm.
A linear story would just kick in the door, and the next one you open, and it's the guys in the doorway. But writers are always trying to challenge you a little bit. I'm going to give you something more than what you expect here, but I'm going to give you something satisfying by the end. It's
Yes.
going to go where you want to go, where you want it to go, but I'm going to take you for a ride and make you question whether or not it's going to go where it's going to go. And it is an actual choice that the writers make to do that, and we know how to do that, and we know how to keep you interested. And you'll watch shows like I don't know if you ever watched Fargo, the show.
No,
Um,
but I know it's gotten acclaim. Yeah.
okay, so if you haven't watched Fargo, I'm going to say watch all 5 series, watch them in order. It's going to be the best wild ride you've taken on TV in years. You're gonna
Okay.
you're gonna love it.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
it's written by brilliant people, and some of these shows, yeah, the writers are just amazing. And some of the comics, the same thing. They know how to get you. They know how to get you to that last page. And then you're like, oh, I got to get that thing next month. Oh, you
Yeah.
know. Um, but it's an art form, and to anything, there's a way to do art, and that's That's the writer's job.
Yes. I certainly appreciate that. Like I know Batman's gonna win, but I want it to be in the way that grabs me, that makes me
He
not be
he
like,
always
ah,
wins.
yeah,
He always
yeah,
wins.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
But it's not
appreciate that.
always the thing he wants to win. Sometimes it's yeah, some characters there's nothing new you can do with them really.
Mhm.
So you just have to create a landscape or a world where some crazy stuff happens and you have to look. I'm sick of reading Batman and the Joker. I'll
Oh,
admit
me
it.
too.
I'll
100. I'll
admit it.
put up
I
two
don't.
hands to that. Two
When I
hands.
see the movies and they put the Joker in, I'm like, oh God, no. Like, can't he just have somebody else for a
Yeah,
change?
make someone up. Just something, please. Yeah.
Right. But we're talking because we've been doing it for years. There's some 18-year-old that's like, oh my God, the Joker's the coolest thing. So you have to understand that is part of the cycle of this material. There is a cycle to it. And we have to understand that. But yeah, I will if I never read another Joker story, I'm perfectly fine.
Me too. Give me like 10 years and I'm cool with it. It's just like
Yeah. Yeah.
again, come on. They just did Joker War. They came off this, that. Yeah, I
There's
appreciate
three Jokers, there's five Jokers, whatever. Yeah.
it. Exactly, exactly.
You got my money already. Give me something new, will you?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, going back to you and Amanda traveling, um, whenever I see your pictures, especially the one that you posted last week where you said something like, I want this always, it was the reflection, like on the ice or
Oh,
something.
Amanda and the Ice. Yeah, that was in we were in Lake Louise in Banff up in Canada. I took
Okay.
that picture. It was
That
the lake was iced over.
it was gorgeous, man. That was
Yeah.
like a work of art in and of itself. That could be like a beautiful postcard.
Yeah.
But the thing that I always appreciate about you guys is whenever you and Amanda are together, you look just so alive. Like there's a zest for life and an enjoyment of life and an enjoyment of each other. And I'm
Yeah.
like, man, I hope I can nail that down one day. So
Yeah. So not to get morbid or anything, but I know, I've had people close to me pass away. Darwin Cook, Steve Dillon,
yeah.
not like a lot of people way before their time.
Mhm.
And when you have that happen to you and they're dying in their 50s and you're in your 60s, I'm 62, right? When you start to realize like anything could happen to me at any time. Like what I don't know, an airplane can land on my house. And by the way, if it does, you can use this podcast to say Jimmy knew what was going to happen. But anyway, so when you have that in your life where you lose people, you start to appreciate people and you start to appreciate your time with them. And you said you have kids, right?
I don't have children, no.
You don't have children. Okay. Are you married or you're not married?
I'm not married. I've
Okay.
played that tune in the past, but I'm looking for someone that someone proper. So
Yes. So the key is to find someone that falls in love with you for you, not for the thing they want to fix, not for the thing that they think you are. Um, when I met when I met Amanda, she was married, right? And we were just friends. And she knew me as a single guy, and she knew me having a girlfriend, and we became friends because I was inking her on Vampirella back then, and her marriage didn't work out, and whatever relationship I didn't have work out, and we both looked at each other at one point and realized, like, well, this is the person I want to be with because she gets what I do, obviously for a living, she gets that. But more important, she had a sense of humor that I had. Like we had a particular sense of humor, but we're also very present people. We're very like when you meet Amanda and I at a con, you're the only person that exists in the world. We talk to you, we make sure that we spend time with you. And Amanda's like a special person, she's like she loves to have fun. She loves to, when we travel, she wants to try new food. She wants to go new places. So you have to find somebody that has that in common with you. And it's not easy, you know, it's not because you meet people. It's funny because I always say the younger people always say, well, this one looks this way and that one looks, and I said, you're just gonna meet somebody that flaws you on five different levels. It's not just the looks, because the looks, sure, the looks are great, right? You want that. But at the same time, you want somebody that's gonna encourage you to be more you. And is the best way I can explain it. Like somebody somebody that loves you for what they are, but and wants to celebrate that, you know. Um, and it's my relationship with her is that she has my back, I have her back all the time. And when we travel, we have fun and we laugh at the same stupid things. And we both like talking to complete strangers and engaging with people. Um, and it takes a while to find that because I mean I went through a lot of relationships before I met Amanda,
Mhm.
and I my only wish with her is I wish I met her when I was in my 20s,
Yeah,
instead of waiting so long in my life. But sometimes that happens. Sometimes people don't meet anybody, and you realize that your friends are your life or whatever. Everybody's different, but you have to get out in the world to meet that person, and that's the tough part because it's a kind of vulnerable that you have to kind of expose yourself to. That's not so easy.
sure,
And again, people are judgy. People people judge, and mostly it's out of their own insecurities, by the way.
certainly.
Um, so you have to kind of look past it. You kind of have to be a little smarter than other people. You have to kind of sit back in that chair and be wise, in that rocking chair, and rock back and forth and go,
Mm.
well, they're insecure, and
Yeah,
the reason she's wrapped up in that is because she feels something else. You know, it's not an easy thing to navigate. I did get lucky, and I realize it. I realize it so much that when we are together, which is every day, we just try to make the best of each day, and because we don't know what's going to happen. And so yeah, so when you see Amanda and I in photos, that's genuine. We're
yeah,
genuinely like having a great time and laughing at stuff. And she poses with the cosplayers, like she does all these,
yep.
and that's just us having fun. We're so happy to be with the fans. The fans are awesome, and we love hanging out with them and being with them, and we feel blessed that people even give our work the time of day. There's so many talented people out there, but we feel really blessed that people like our work. You know.
I think people really love your work more than like, especially
Well,
when it comes to Harley. People like
okay.
really, really go to bat and they're like, "Oh, I love this."
Yeah, I'm happy they do. I'm happy it's look that our whole job is about entertaining people and making them happy. So if we can succeed at that, then we've done our job. And not everything we do is going to be great. The odds are, once in a while we have something that, kicks ass. But the journey of a creator is to just keep creating, not to look at each thing and look back and go, that was the best. Amanda and I always talk about the next thing we do is going to be better and it's going to be the best thing. And that is the creator's goal, not to sit back and look at your past successes and pat yourself on the back, because we constantly think the next thing we're doing. We laugh about our next project. Oh, that one's gonna, we're gonna throw people for a loop on that. I remember when we did the Pro years ago, and we were just laughing like this is either gonna be the biggest bomb that we ever did, or people are gonna love it. There's gonna be no in between with this book. It's either gonna do really well or it's gonna die on the vine, and we're gonna be out. They're gonna kick us out of the comic industry for it. And but the book was done in a complete. Me, Garth, and Amanda were laughing the whole time we were doing the book, and there's something about that because when we're laughing, we got to figure, you know what, other people are gonna be in on a joke too. Like and the book has this joy. You read the book, The
No,
Pro?
I'm not.
No? Okay, that's
What company was it?
Image Comics put it out, Brian. It's a one shot that me, Amanda, and Garth and us worked on. We were in a bar in Germany. We came up with the idea. It's a 64 page, it's an adult comic book, and it's our version of the Justice League takes in a hooker that has superhero powers.
What?
And if you've never read it, you're in for a treat. You'll have the
That
people that
sounds like
watch
a
your
wild premise.
you'll have the people that watch your podcast telling you, "Oh my God, you have to read that." I
Okay.
guarantee you.
Okay.
Anyway, we did it because we were having fun doing it, and then we had to find a publisher, and the only person that wanted to touch it was Image Comics because there is nudity, there's violence, it's foul. It was the boys before the boys.
Oh, okay, got you.
Okay, Garth did it before he came up with the boys, and it was sort of his testing ground to see if he can get away with something like that, and which he did.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, there's a couple of more things I
okay,
I just want to run by you. I'm really enjoying your time, Jimmy. So
Well,
thank you.
thanks. I'm glad having a good time, Brian. It's fun to
Well,
talk about this stuff.
I'm glad. I'm glad. Thank you. One of our friends, his YouTube name is OmniDog, but his name is Jess Bragg. Really sweet guy.
Okay.
He said he wanted to be here tonight, but he had another obligation himself because he loves your Harley run. And he said he'd like to know what gave you and Amanda the idea to take Harley in such a wacky new direction. All the crazy characters, fourth wall breaking stuff is what made him fall in love with her. And your writing on Harley was so fun. He said she was great before, but turning her into this kind of anti-hero who wants to help people, still be a psychiatrist, roller derby queen is epic. So how did you come up with the initial concept, and how did DC react?
So when we got the gig, the end of the deal asked the man and I if we wanted to do Harley Quinn, and he said, "Look, no matter what you do, you know the book's been canceled in the past. No matter what you do, it's only going to last 6 or 8 issues. So have fun." And we said to him, "Well, can we have freedom to do what we want? Because if we're going to write the book, we want to make it our way." He goes, "Be loyal to who she is," which we were, but take it in another direction. So the first note I had was, I don't want to write a book about a girl in an abusive relationship. So right away, she has to break up with the Joker. The second thing is, I don't want to do a book that has Batman in it.
Right.
I got to get her out of Gotham because otherwise it's a Batman universe book and there's a ton of them. So we moved her out of Gotham and put her in Coney Island, Brooklyn. Now, Paul Dini and Bruce Timm, obviously, they created the character and she was born in Brooklyn. So it made complete sense for us to put her in Brooklyn. It made more sense to put her in Coney Island since it's like a circus. And then the other thing, Amanda right away said, I'm going to change the costume because no woman wears the same costume all the time. She should have different costumes. And when Amanda was drawing that first issue cover, #1, she started realizing, she looks like a derby, like the outfit looks like a derby girl. Let me put some shoulder pads on her. And let me put the 51. If you notice the 5150, that's a police call. When the police say there's a 5150, that means it's an escaped person from a lunatic asylum.
Oh, okay.
Right? So that's a police numbers, call letters on it. And so Amanda's changed the costume, and then every issue we changed the costume a little bit to match the story. So we did a couple of things that shook up the thing. And again, Dan said, it's probably not going to last long, so just have fun and go crazy. So the best thing you can tell creators is have fun and go crazy. Right. Because that's exactly what we did. And then a year later, it's the #1 book putting out from DC. A year and a half later, it's the #1 Halloween costume in the United States. Like we never expected it to get that crazy. And we wrote the book entirely in continuity, meaning when you read issue 1 all the way up to all the way the issues, it was a never-ending story. It was just one big story with little adventures in the middle. And even when we did the spin-off books and we did some annuals and Little Black Book and everything, it was all in continuity because Dan let us. We asked Dan not to put Harley in other books other than Suicide Squad because we didn't want the character to be overused. And as it became more successful, we got more strict. We're like, you can't use Harley. It's only in our book. Harley's only in our book. You have to go to our book to get Harley. And Suicide Squad, of course, was going on. But Suicide Squad, for us, was set in the past. Because in one of our issues, she actually popped the bomb out of her neck. And she said, this thing's been a dud forever. And so it was in her past. So we wrote Harley as if Suicide Squad was something that happened already.
Oh, okay.
And then, so we never expected it to get that big, and we wrote it like sort of like Amanda and I just sat there and wrote the adventures. We wrote whatever we wanted. We made, Amanda and I talked and we said, because she's in Brooklyn, she needs her own supporting cast, not Batman villains. Don't do like, the cartoon did that, right? I'm like, I don't want Batman villains. We've seen them a million times. Let's create characters specifically for Harley. So we created the Burlesque, we created Tony, we created the Beaver, which drives everyone nuts. We love the Beaver. But we started creating all these other characters. The Gang of Harleys was a separate group of characters. And because we wanted her to be her own universe. She's the center of her universe. not Batman's universe. She's not a character in Batman's universe. She's not a character in Joker's universe anymore. We needed Harley to be the center of her universe. And I think that stuck. That was the thing that made the book stand out. It no longer was a Batman runoff or a Joker girlfriend. Harley became her own character. And Jim Lee said she's the fifth tier character of DC Comics. You know, it's Superman, Batman, Flash, Wonder Woman, Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
And that was a conscious thing on our part because we needed to get away from the other books. We just felt like, you know, the only way you're going to get to know who Harley Quinn is to spend time with Harley Quinn and not to spend time with the Joker and Batman. We've seen them a million times, like enough. Now it's funny, after we leave the book, they put her in a cartoon where she's with Batman and the Joker and all that stuff. But that's selling the character to a broad audience, you know, and we get that. Just like Suicide Squad, on some level, it's a broad audience. But we were happy it took off. We never expected it to outsell Batman and Superman, and it did. We never expected it. We just was like, in the heat of it, we were doing 2 books a month for them, and we didn't even have time to breathe. We kept working and working and working and working and writing and writing and writing and writing. And when we hit the 5-year mark, we were like, we need to stop. We need to take a vacation. Amanda and I need to reintroduce ourselves to each other, and we need to take a break. And then that's when all the other people started doing Harley, and it went back to Batman and Harley and Batman, you know, whatever. I was hoping there was a good lesson in there for them. And it seems pretty obvious to me. But you know, they're gonna do what they want to do. Now the book, I don't know if it sells that well anymore. The continuity with writers is all over the place. Yeah. They've dropped her supporting characters. You don't see them in the book, which I think was a huge mistake. I think you had an audience. The one thing we get at cons is people coming up and saying, "Oh man, I miss when you guys wrote it because you had all these other characters and it was so much fun." And I'm like, well, you know, tell DC, don't tell me.
Right. Right. Well, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate you.
Sure. Well, I hope that answered your buddy's question there.
Yeah, I was listening very closely. I think you hit all the bases plus some. Like 5150, I just sent myself a text. I'm going to put that in the thumbnail. What's a 5150, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we can look it up right now technically.
Yeah.
Right? And it's 51. There's a technical thing. 5150 police code numbers, right? Let's see what it pops up. 5150 is a number of the section of the Welfare and Institutions Code, which allows an adult who is experiencing a mental health crisis to be involuntarily detained in a 72-hour psychiatric hospitalization when evaluated to be a danger to others or him or herself or gravely disabled. So Amanda put that on.
How did she know that? Was she a nurse like prior, or?
No, she just, I don't know. She pulls these things out of thin air sometimes, and I'm like, but it's so much fun when you know that. Yeah. It makes so much sense why she had those on. And that's part of her roller derby costume. She'd have the numbers on it. And, if you think about it, it makes complete sense that Harley would be in a roller derby.
Yeah.
To get out of her aggression.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I saw in, again, Wikipedia, it said, I forgot what issue, but it said it was selling upwards of like 400,000 monthly. Does that sound about right?
We had certain issues that hit some crazy numbers. I think that was probably the number one for. I know that the Rebirth #1 was the top selling comic of the year.
Okay.
And we did another book. It was the Harley Quinn. Be careful what you wish for. It was a one shot where Harley found a genie bottle and had 100 wishes or whatever. And it was the most insane book we did. But they made it part of I can't remember. It used to be this thing where you'd get a box that would have a T-shirt in it, a toy, a comic, and I can't remember.
Loot Crate?
Loot Crate. So Loot Crate printed, I think it was 500,000 or 600,000 copies of that. Plus the book came out. So we told them we sold 600,000 copies because Loot Crate was paying people, bought it. So we used the argument and said, well, that comic alone did 600,000 copies.
Yeah.
You know, we at the peak we were doing some crazy numbers. I mean, it wasn't consistent that it was always that high, but we definitely had the numbers were crazy, and to this day, you know, those back issues, as much as there are, they're still a little tough to get.
Yeah.
Some of them because they just the people who have them kept them. You know.
I know some of the, I've heard, again, Jess, Omnidog, who asked those questions. I believe he had mentioned just in passing from time to time, you know, how some of her omnibuses were out of print. You know, they were that popular.
There is the I think I know they still have some left on the third, but I think the first and second omnibuses are out. And believe me, I keep asking DC to redo them because I'm like, you have a constant audience. Make
Yes.
sure they get them. But you know, we had the same thing when we did Power Girl. It did well, and they did a trade book for Power Girl, and it sold out. And it took like 10 years for them to re-release that trade. And they just released it 6 or 8 months ago, and it's one of their best-selling trades again. And I keep telling them, I'm like, guys, you know, you need to make sure people can get their hands on this stuff because they really do want it. And certain books are, you know, certain books stay timeless. You know, look, you'll always have people wanting a copy of Dark Knight or Watchmen or, you know, and we like to think that part of our run for Harley is like, yeah, it's, you know, the first 25 issues is a great trade, is a great book to have. You know, you hope for that perennial type of sale in
Yeah.
something you've done in your career where, look, they keep collecting the, I think I just got a copy. I don't know where it is. It's somewhere around here. But they just keep collecting the Daredevil I did with Joe Quesada and Kevin Smith.
Yeah, this
The
one. This
Yeah,
just
that
came
one you
out
have, right? That so they
gallery edition. This is like the
right
big.
every couple of years there's another edition of that. You know?
Yeah, Marvel's way better at reprinting.
Yeah, yeah.
And DC, I don't know, is there one person who handles it or like a few people? Do you know?
I think a committee decides, and they
Okay.
base it on sales or.
Committee, there we go. That's
Yeah, yeah. Committees is not a great word,
yeah.
you know, but whatever.
Yeah, because there's another guy, I don't know, you on with Omar. Omar always does on near mint condition. He
Yeah,
always does a reprint poll for Marvel, and Marvel actually listens to him. And then
right.
next thing you know, a book that he polled readers on gets reprinted. And DC, like they give him crickets, whereas he drums up so much business for Marvel. DC is
Yeah.
really missing out on easy money. So
DC, man, I can't tell you how many times I told them to collect the Jonah Hexes because they're all out of print.
yeah.
I said, just do 2 sets of books, all 70 issues, 35 in each book. You'll sell them like crazy. And they're like, we'll reprint that other Batman story again. And I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah, yeah.
Or 85 Green Lantern trades. I mean, who the hell's
Yes,
buying them?
yes. Where?
You
Like,
know?
where are you guys sending
But you know, it's all money. You know, it comes down to money for these guys, sadly.
Yeah, but it's easy money. It seems so so simple, which makes
Yeah,
it
it does.
complicated. So
Well, until we run our own company, Brian, until you take over DC, we'll wait for that.
yes,
We'll wait.
one day,
Yes, one day soon.
one day. Jimmy, also, I wanted to ask you if you're cool with sharing. I've heard through the grapevine Kevin tell the story years ago about how this came about.
Yeah,
Like he
yeah.
told, I've heard him say like he was jazzed, then he was nervous about it and he backed out, and Joe was really disappointed, and then he said you got on the phone and basically lit him up. Can you?
Yeah. So when we were doing it, he was. We asked him to write the book. He was excited. We sold Marvel Knights on the fact that he was one of our creators that was going to work on Daredevil. He had a storyline, and then somebody did his storyline. Like
Hmm.
another writer did his storyline, and he bowed out to Joe that he can't do it. That was his idea. Blah 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 blah. And then Joe told me, and I called up Kevin late at night, very late, and I
Did you have a
in
few
the
in you? Or?
nicest. He says I cursed at him. I don't believe
Yeah.
it. But I told him, I said, kind of shitty writer are you that you only have one idea? I'm like, I'm like, I'm like, dude, I'm like, it's Matt Murdock. You turn a corner and there's another story. Just turn a corner. I said, Kevin, you got more than one story in you. You can't tell me you only have one Daredevil story. And I gave him shit on the phone. And I think I told him, it really sucks that you're disappointing the guys that came through for you on
Yes.
your films, which we did.
Yes.
Um, I made him feel, I gave him a bunch of Jewish guilt, basically, Brooklyn Jewish Italian guilt.
Mhm.
Um, I probably was upset when I called him and gave him shit, but I don't know if he's used to hearing that from people. But I didn't care. I was like, dude, you promised you'd do it and you're disappointing us and you're really letting us down. I gave him the whole thing, and wouldn't you know it, the next night he had the Guardian Devil story.
Bam.
Sometimes you need to poke the beast a little bit,
Well, certainly. Most
Um, but I wasn't about, Joe was like, Joe was a little more, how would I say, forgiving than I was. Because I was like, wait a minute, we sold you on this thing. You can't back out. You can't back out. Yeah, I was pretty pissed. I was very Italian. I was mad at the moment. And but he thanked me for it later. He says, you kind of got that story out of me. You kind of like, yeah, you kind of yelled at, I'm not used to being yelled at. And I was like, everybody should get yelled at once in a while. I don't know.
Yeah.
I grew
Yeah.
up getting yelled at.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but that is a true story. Kevin has a much more colorful way of telling it.
Yeah, yeah, it was more colorful and like I didn't know that somebody had taken his story, the original story. I just the way he told it was, he got cold feet, backed out. Joe was like, sorry, I wish you would. And then you called up and you like, gave him the business
Yeah.
and basically like we're like, oh, you put him on his toes to where he's like, okay, I can't let these guys down.
He had an idea about Matt regaining his sight.
Oh,
And
wow.
and what happened was Scott Lobdell, who was working on the last three issues of Daredevil, because Daredevil was canceled at that time. It
Yeah, it
was
wasn't even popular at that time.
no, no, it wasn't. And they were canceling the book, and then he got word that Scott's last three issues were about Matt regaining his sight, and he was like, I can't do this. That was my idea. That was my only idea. And I was just like, no, nobody has one idea. It's Daredevil. Come up with another idea. I'm glad he came through in spades. I mean, the job he did was wonderful, and Joe and I had a great time illustrating it. Um, I'm very proud of that book you were holding in your hand. I'm very proud of it. Art wise, it's just beautiful.
It really is.
And that's the right combination, right? Penciler, inker, writer, colorist, Richard Eisenhoff, colorist, lettering, everything, comic crafted, the lettering on. That was like all the right people coming together and doing something they love. And that's a book of love. You open it, you can tell there's nothing rushed about it. Everything's very thought out, everything meticulous artwork. There's no, look at that cover. It's just, there's nothing lazy about it,
No, not
you
at
know?
all.
Um, and that's when that's like a catching lightning, because comics catches lightning only not a lot, not as much as you think, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
And that was one of the times. I think that and Harley is another time I caught lightning. I've been able to catch lightning here and there once in a while, so it's my superpower.
Well, what is it? Good things happen to good people, I believe. So
I hope so. I hope good things happen to bad people once in a while. Maybe it'll make them less bad.
yeah, maybe it'll help them turn the corner,
Maybe
right?
it'll rub off on them. Yeah.
Change your heart, change your heart.
Yeah, although Hitler, he deserved whatever he did.
Yeah, that's a deep pull there, Jim. Deep pull.
Yeah.
Well, I must tell you, with the art on Guardian Devil, or just art in general, I always love when I read my comics and my books, the graphic novels. I always look at the background, especially like a cityscape,
Right.
or even on like the first page here, Joe draws this great panel where Karen's talking about, I think Kevin, Matt taking her, wanting her to go to church, and
Right.
like it's like an upshot, and you see like the cross above, like, but it's like a stone cross with like a diamond in it, or a
Yeah, it
jewel.
goes up. Yeah, it goes up. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a
there's just
Celtic. It's a Celtic cross. Yeah.
yes. Okay, Celtic cross. Yeah, and you could see some of the pane glass underneath the way it's colored, but just the detail and the care that was taken in that, and just in comics in general, when someone draws a cityscape and they do the windows and they got everything in great proportion, I always take an extra minute or two to like appreciate that, because it's so used to just like reading the words and turning the page.
Well, it is. Steve Dillon said comics are about a word balloon, and then it points to a head. So you follow it to a head, and that's what you usually. And then you read the next. And when the art is extraordinary, you usually go back after you're done and look at everything, you know. And with Joe was not didn't have a lazy bone in his body, and we wanted to show off on that book. We wanted to show Marvel that we can do their characters better than they do it, right?
Yeah.
We did Black Panther. We wanted to show them we could do Black Panther better. We can do Inhumans better. Me, Garth, and Steve, our whole thing was, let me show you how you should write the Punisher and do the Punisher. And it was our opportunity to get in there. I mean, we literally had an office in the penthouse of the Marvel building that we worked out of. We were in the office every day, and we just wanted to show them, like, this is what happens when you let real creators create. You're going to get product that's going to be timeless. It's not going to just be this month's comic. It's going to be something that stands the test of time. And all those Marvel Knight books, they all stand the test of time, so much so they've made movies, TV shows, everything out of them. Well, out of all 4 books, you know, and then 6 books eventually. Because we did, we also added Marvel Boys, which is being made. And then we did Black Widow, which we introduced Yelena, that character. And then, of course, there was a Black Widow movie. And then we bring David Mack in and we create Echo, and Echo has a TV series. And, you know, so the Marvel Knights legacy was about taking what they did and making it better, putting more care and more love, but also matching the right creator to the right title. And it's a magical thing when it works, and 99% of the time it doesn't work. 90% of the time it's okay, it's decent, it's whatever. But then when you look at George Perez on Avengers, John Byrne on X-Men, Bernie Wrightson on Swamp Thing, Neil Adams on Green Lantern, Green Arrow, you know, you say a talent's name, Walt Simonson on Thor. When you can say a talent's name and go right to a book, Will Eisner on The Spirit, Joe Kubert on Sergeant Rock, you know, these things and these little quick, you realize that creator made a difference. Darwin Cook on Catwoman, you know, you can keep going. And when you can think of it that quick, you realize that that's somebody that made a difference. And by the way, we love doing Daredevil, but we're not Frank Miller on Daredevil,
Right?
Like that, or David Mazzucchelli on Daredevil. But like I said, every generation has their thing. But like I said, that when you can do like creators, like I give you a creator's name and you name a title, it usually means because they had a run on it that left a giant impression on you or on the readers. Jim Starlin on Captain Marvel and Warlock, you know, Paul Galassi and Doug Mensch on Master of Kung Fu. You know, it's like whenever you do that, you realize that's the lightning in the bottle of our industry. Those are the top 10s and the top 20s of the books. Dave Gibbons and Alan Moore on Watchmen. You know, I can keep going, right? But these are the books everybody has on their bookshelves. And my bookshelf is right there, by the way. And these are the books we have on them, you know, because these are the ones that stand out for us, and it's lightning in a bottle. These are the books that made an impression, that the creative team was the best team for that character, and then who wins? The everybody wins, especially the readers. Yeah,
everybody wins. Do you have a few more minutes, or am I?
I got another 10 minutes if we could.
Oh, yeah, okay. No, thank you.
We got dinner, so.
Yeah. Do you have like any art near you, like on the wall or something, or just your?
I do. I have. I can.
Would it be
I mean, let me turn my.
Yeah.
I have a portfolio right here.
Oh, awesome, dude.
Stuff I collect, you know.
Oh, okay.
So,
like
stuff that I have.
art?
So, I'll show you. I'll pull some pieces out. They're in pages, right? So they're in a portfolio, right?
Wow.
But let me pull out some.
This is original art
that book I did called Trigger Girl.
Okay.
And this is a drawing by Ryan Sook. That's the original.
Wow. That's beautiful. So you inked it all?
No, he did everything on it.
Oh, okay.
This is Ryan.
That's beautiful.
He did a book for me. A lot of times when I have guys do work for me, I buy their originals because I love their work.
That's a beautiful picture.
Yeah, this is one. This is from the 70s. It's Nick Cardy.
Wow.
The Witching Hour. It has an acetate because it has lettering on it.
Yeah. Wow.
But look at that.
That's amazing. Look
Yeah.
at those, the detail on the stairs too. Well done. That's awesome.
Yeah, let me show. Let me got a couple more here. Uh, so I collect artwork, as you might have figured out.
Sure.
I also post a lot of artwork. I think you
Yes, you
see that
do.
once
And
in
I
a while.
love it. I love it.
Um, I like to celebrate other people's art. Here's a Army at War page from Joe Kubert.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
It's
That's super
Sergeant
cool.
Sergeant Rock. Look at that.
Wow, that's beautiful, Jim. Do you pick those up like at a heritage auction or do you?
No, so when I was younger in my teens, I would buy comic book artwork.
Okay.
So we're talking about 70s and 80s, early 80s, but mostly 70s, right? So I'm going to show you something on the back of this Joe Kubert page that'll make your heart sink.
15. Wow. What? Well,
It's
you
not worth it's not worth $15
no,
anymore.
no, no. It's got to be worth like what, 15K at least, something like that.
No, it's probably, like 3 or 4 grand or whatever.
Really, for
Maybe.
a Sergeant Rock?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe more. I don't know. I'm not going to part with it.
No, no, no. Yeah, yeah.
This is one that Amanda and Dave Johnson worked on together, and it's Painkiller Jane with the monolith.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a watercolor.
That is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great detail.
Yeah, they're both what a great team. Both
Yeah.
Dave and Amanda are just terrific. Let me see. I got a couple more. I'm trying to find something that you find interesting. Let's see. Let's see. There's so much in here. Let's how about a Harley Quinn? How about
There
that?
we go.
Okay. This is I don't know what issue because Amanda never writes the issue number on the covers. It drives me crazy, but um
Oh,
that's the original.
that's beautiful. That's
So
awesome, man.
it's Harley having dinner and she's imagining all the different Harley outfits.
Yeah, there's a 5150. Yeah.
Yeah, she's got like a tight curl thing going on. There's her
Yeah.
with her roller skates, and
Yeah.
there she's eating spaghetti and
Yeah.
drinking.
Yeah. I grew up in the
Uh,
age when roller derby was a thing on TV. So I
yeah.
appreciate that.
Well, it just makes sense. Like I said, we stumbled on the idea, and then we actually went to some roller derby matches, and we kind of took it a little further. Let me get one more piece of art. Let me find
Please.
something
Thank
that I
you.
think you might find interesting. Got a lot of Harleys in here. Let's see. I think I saw something back here. Oh, here's a. How about Harley and Batman together? We didn't do that too often, but we actually did for a Christmas issue. We did a Christmas story, and we had Harley annoying Batman
Huh.
by
That's a
sitting in his
great,
lap.
that is a great picture. That's
Yeah, let me
awesome.
get a little closer.
Yeah, I love his face.
Yeah,
Uh,
he does not want to be there.
no, not at all. I don't know.
There's
That's so
Bernie the
cool.
Beaver,
Thank you.
and yeah, this original it's beautiful. I mean, Amanda draws pretty big,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What?
and this is
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
original.
That,
This
that is
original,
pretty big. That looks
yeah,
bigger
and
than like 11 by 17.
it's a little bigger than normal cover. Um, and she also Amanda has this thing where the art looks like it's printed on there. It just doesn't look like it does. You don't see the pencil marks because she's super clean. She sketches, and then when she does the finish, it looks like people always say it looks like it's printed on, and I'm like, yeah, that's she's kind of got that super clean quality. Anyway, so I collect art. So that's just one portfolio of stuff.
So that's
Um,
one. You have more. Wow, cool.
I have so I've been collecting art since I was young. Now I've sold a lot of it. The house we're in, I put the $200,000 down payment for the house. It was more. But I sold my Dark Knight pages. I
Oh,
sold my
wow.
Hellboy covers. I sold my Watchmen pages. The house I'm in is because I bought artwork when I was younger, and I bought this stuff when I mean my Dark Knight pages. I bought them for $600 each. They went for at the time when I bought the house. This is many years ago. they still went for $17,000 each. I was able to put a down payment on the house just selling some of my artwork collection. I wish I had the pages because the Dark Knight pages I sold, they're worth $400,000 each now.
Yes.
I had the one where Batman's parents get killed.
Oh, wow.
I had that page. But you know what? Having a house and having a roof over my head is a hell of a lot more important than a sheet of paper in a portfolio.
Indeed, especially because your house is gaining equity too for whatever
Yeah, we wanted a nice house and we got it, and but collecting the art is a hobby. I still buy stuff from new guys, and I don't buy like I used to because everything's expensive now, and comic people don't really make much money, so I kind of limited it. But you saw what I paid back then. I used to buy pages for $10 or $15 or $5, and that was my budget. I would buy like one or two. At every con I went, I'd have like $30, and I'd buy like 2 pages or 3 pages, or I talk a guy into giving me 2 or 3 pages. And I had good taste in art. Like I bought good art because my taste in art was pretty good. I never bought it with the thought that I was reselling it. I bought it because I liked it, you know. I was bummed because I couldn't find Jim Starlin pages, and I never ran into them when I was younger. And now they're so expensive. Or Pogolesi Master Kung Fu, I have 1 page that I managed to get, but back then I was in college. I think I was in high school and college, so I was working for newspapers. I worked for the Daily News. I not delivering. I would clean. I worked in the bullpen where the artists were. I would sweep the floors and sharpen their pencils and at the end of the day, I would clean up their work areas. That was my after school job.
Well, I used to have a subscription to the Daily News.
There you go. Yeah, man. Well, you remember they used to have the cartoonist Bill Kresge would do the sports cartoon. So I worked in the bullpen with Jerry Schlamp, Bill Kresge, all those guys. I was the kid after high school. I would go there and clean up the mess they made all day. And they would talk to me and they'd show me how to draw things. And it was a great job for a kid. It was any hour I got there. And they paid me, I don't know, like $3 an hour or something like that. I was just happy to be there.
No, I appreciate that, but I appreciate you more. This has been a blast. I knew we were going to get along because you from the way Dan has talked about you, and also just seeing you online, you're like what's his name in Cheers? Like everybody knows your name. Like everybody's got a Jimmy Palmiotti story, and everybody speaks.
Well, Dan told you he used to be my next door neighbor, right?
He didn't tell me the neighbor part, but he said he loved you.
He used to be when in Brooklyn. He lived in the next building next door. We met in the comic shop buying comics, and we just started talking. And I said, "You live around here?" And he goes, "Yeah, I live at this address." And I'm like, "I live next door." And he's like, "What?" And I said, "I live in the apartment building next door." And that's how we became friends.
Oh, yeah.
Before comics, way before we did comics.
Way before you did. Oh, okay. So you were.
Yeah, I was already working in comics. He was a guy. He worked for NBC or ABC or something like that. Right. He worked for TVs. He was driving. He was like he was taking care of soap opera stars and stuff like that when he started. And he just loved comics, and he had a collection. And then we would talk about comics. And one day I was offered Superboy to write like a couple of issues because they were canceling it. Yeah. And I brought Dan in, and I said, "Well, I want to write it with my friend Dan." They're like, "We don't care. It's going to get canceled." And so we wrote like 5 issues of Superboy. And while we were writing it, a headhunter hunted him out. And he got the job as editor-in-chief of DC. And I found out, he called me, he says, "You're not going to believe what just happened." And I said, "What happened?" He goes, I'm coming to your apartment. I'm coming over. I have to tell you." And he told me, he goes, "I got the job as editor-in-chief." I'm like, "What?" And it was a crazy time, right? Because Joe Quesada was the editor-in-chief at Marvel, and Dan was the editor-in-chief at DC. And of course, I know them both. So it made my life harder because both of them said, "We can't do you any favors because people are going to think we're playing favorites."
Right.
So they both made my life hell for the first year or two.
Well, Dan told us, he's like, one of the first things I had to do was have a tough conversation with Jimmy and cancel his series,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
really?
He said to me, he says, "I can't play favorites with you."
Yeah.
And I was like, "I don't care, dude. I'm a hard worker. I'm gonna get work no matter what. So do what you got to do."
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Jimmy, thank you for sharing that story. Thank you for the 5150. I'm always going to remember that now, and I'm
There you
always,
go.
dude, I'm always going to look for it. And it's
Hey,
been,
pleasure was mine, Brian. This was fun.
oh, thanks, buddy. I really appreciate you making the time. And please send my regards to Amanda.
Will do.
And yeah, we should be at New York Comic Con again next year. And
So we're going to be there.
yeah,
We're guests this year. So
we'll bump into you.
Todd's a great guy. I adore him. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right, buddy, Brian. Good talking to you. I got to run.
All right. Enjoy
Let me
yourself,
know when
Jimmy.
it's up,
Thanks
man. Let me
again.
know when you post it, okay?
I definitely will, and I very much appreciate you. Thank
All
you.
right, buddy. Take
All right,
care.
buddy. You too. Be well.
You too. Bye.